Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another fun fall DIY video. In today's video, we're going to be taking those really inexpensive pumpkins that you can find at the Dollar Tree or even at Dollar General or Walmart for under $1, and we're going to be flipping them around, turning them into something fun, unique, and a little more high-end, and we're going to do it all on a budget. Let's get started. All right, so we're going to be using a variety of techniques and different options in this video, but we're going to start by giving all of our pumpkins a base coat of different colors based on what I was planning to do with them. We're going for some neutral DIYs here, but you could do different colors if you wanted. Now these pumpkins, they're all styrofoam. I had actually previously used them in DIY, so I kind of went through my home decor and took some stuff out that I was like, I don't need to use this anymore. And I was not planning on taking the paint off, but when I took some of the DIYs apart, there was like little chunks that came off and I was able to peel everything off. And some of these were those plastic coated ones. And when I went to peel off the paint, the plastic coating came off as well. So that's just what I'm using as the styrofoam base. I figured I should explain that. So the first one, we painted a brown, which is a little bit darker than the material we're using, but I just didn't want the bright white to pop through. So we are going to take some brown paper bags and we are going to cut some strips. You could also use brown craft paper, which is a little bit stiffer, but I still think that you could use it. But I have a ton of these brown paper bags in my pantry because they come in like a package of like 100. So when I wanted to buy them once, I bought a ton. I ultimately ended up using 3 bags. They're small bags, and I didn't use quite all of the pieces, but it's going to depend on the size of your pumpkin. So we're basically just cutting some strips here, and then we're going to crumple them up. And then ultimately I wanted them in like a strip, but I did wrinkle them in all different directions because I wanted them to be really wrinkly. So I cut them up and wrinkled a whole pile of them, and then I fired up my hot glue gun. And be careful, I burnt myself initially. I'm going to switch to some finger protectors here in a minute. And I lowered my hot glue gun temp to low. I did not need the high temp. But I'm just putting a thin bead of glue. I don't want the glue to be showing, and I'm just kind of crinkling it up as we go and hot gluing at the top, along the way, and at the bottom, and then I'm going to trim off any excess. And I kind of learned what I liked as I went. I don't know if I can properly explain it to you. I think that's when I burnt myself, and then actually I'm going to stop here in a second and put on another finger protector. I ended up having to go get my lavender oil because the burn was really hurting. But I just kind of kept going, and initially I just kind of went down each of the ribs first and then like the indentations on the pumpkin, and I went back and filled it in, and I kept not always using the finger protected finger to tap this down. So I got better as we went, but you're going to end up having however many layers you want, and just kind of keep going with it until you're covering like all of the surface. You don't necessarily have to paint your pumpkins first, but I just felt like this way, if anything peeked through, it wouldn't be so like glaring in your face. Initially here where it got smaller, I was doing shorter pieces, but I didn't like that. I would just go top to bottom all the way around, and if that means there's some overlapping, that's okay. At the bottom, I tried to make it a little bit, eventually I realized this, tried to make it a little bit flatter, so I would kind of uncrinkle, I'm just peeling off some hot glue here, uncrinkle the piece at the bottom so that it wouldn't be too bulky down there. So I learned as I went, so I'm trying to describe it best to you so that you can learn from my mistakes and maybe do it a little bit differently. But you can't really go wrong here. Brown paper bags are super, super cheap. I was showing you it finished. At the bottom, I did cut a little circle piece off to kind of smooth out the bottom. It's still a little bit of a wobbly pumpkin, but that's okay. Pumpkins aren't perfect. And then I have a greenery bag that just has leaves and little clippings. I always save those because you never know when you're just going to need a little piece. This is off of some type of vine garland piece that I had picked up at Hobby Lobby on like major clearance a long time ago, and I've used it for so many projects. And then I'm showing you the different wood pieces I have. These are all from Dollar Tree, 3 different kinds, but we're also going to use some other pieces in some of the other ones. So I'm just using these wood pieces for a couple of these stems, and we're going to hot glue a little bit of this greenery And so we're going to be doing different textures on the pumpkins. We're going to be using different things for the stem and the vines or leaves on the pumpkin as well. So I just wanted to give you some different ideas, and I really like how this one came out. I love the neutral. I use a lot of color in my fall decor, but when I was decorating this year, I was like, I need more neutrals because I have tons and tons of color, and it's nice to balance it out with some neutrals. But once again, you could do these in any type of color. All right, so moving on to the next one. This is one of those itty bitty pumpkins. I think they come in like a 3-pack from Dollar Tree. I don't know if it originally was on a clip. I don't know. These pumpkins also have a little, some of them have little indents from when I was peeling the paint off. My fingernails was taking off chunks of the styrofoam, but I kind of liked it because it gave it more texture and made it look more realistic. So if you have just plain styrofoam pumpkins, you might want to ding it up a little bit. I'm going in with some baking soda and some gray acrylic paint. We're going for a little cement look here. Now, I do this in addition to something else on another pumpkin coming up. And what I've learned is I always thought like this should clean out of the paintbrush really well because it's baking soda, so warm water, it'll dissolve. I don't know if I don't take enough time in the cleaning process, but I'm from now on using the same paintbrush going forward because it definitely makes it pretty stiff. For all of these, I use a wooden skewer so that I could paint the whole thing at once, and I just stuck it in a jar and weighted it down. But if you don't have that option, just paint the top and then the bottom. If you use the big styrofoam, they're called carvable pumpkins from Dollar Tree. Those are hollow in the inside, so the skewer trick may not work. You just have to paint it, let it dry, paint the rest. This was just a little wood scrap piece. I think it might have been part of a wooden skewer. Again, I save everything. And I thought this would be a perfect little stem for this one, but I wanted to give it some texture. So I'm using this little, I think it's supposed to be like a Cricut tool, but it's from Dollar Tree. I don't have a Cricut or a vinyl machine of any kind, but I bought a lot of the tools because they're handy in crafting. So I'm carving out some lines to give it a little bit of texture, and then I'm using a baby wipe and some antique wax. I know this is a tiny pumpkin, but I still wanted to, to give a little bit of detail to the stem. And then I'm just going to cut a piece of twine. This is bigger than I needed, but I didn't want it to be difficult to tie. And I'm just firing off, or using a lighter to burn off any of the hairs or fuzzies on it. And I'm just tying that around the base of the stem with a little bit of hot glue to secure it. And then I'm going to put some hot glue in the little hole on the pumpkin and push that way down in. And I just hold it for a minute. It doesn't take long for the glue to dry. And then I'm trimming this off and then fraying the twine. It frayed a little bit more than I had wanted, but I just trimmed it down, and in the end, I thought it worked really good. I mean, it's just a tiny pumpkin. This will be a great little kind of filler piece, and it just gave a nice little texture. This is a little brighter than I intended, but you can kind of see. I'll also show this again in the final shot at the end of the video, but I love how that one came out as well. So for this next one, I like that it was a different shape. I didn't really know what I was going to do with this. I had a couple different ideas, but first we're going to paint it. So I painted it with some white, and I used some more of that cream beige color that I had already used, or maybe I'm using it in a future one. I don't remember. These aren't exactly in order, but giving it a base coat. You get the idea. And then I decided I wanted to do a moss pumpkin. So I have the Spanish moss from the Dollar Tree. All right, we all know moss is very messy, okay? Super messy, but I love the natural elements in my decor, and I love the look of the moss. So it's messy. We're gonna go with it. This bag, I use almost the rest of it in this DIY, but I've had it for so long. I've used it for so many DIYs. A lot of times you just need a very little bit. So be very careful with this. Sorry, I didn't even complete a sentence. I am using my finger protectors, going around with hot glue and tapping the moss on. Be very careful you don't burn yourself through it. If you have a low temp on, it may not be as bad. And I'm just pushing, going around, trimming it, adding more. We're going to do the whole thing. By the end, I honestly couldn't remember which side was top or bottom. So I just chose by what I thought looked good when it was all said and done. If you are enjoying this video, please give it a thumbs up. That helps me out so much. It lets me know that you are enjoying the video. It also lets YouTube know that you're enjoying it, and therefore they are more likely to share my video with others, which of course in turns helps me out. So like it, give it a comment down below. All that little stuff, helps out us YouTubers. And now once it was all done and I had trimmed it, no, maybe I didn't trim it yet. I think now I'm going to trim it. I was kind of just going around trimming it and then filling in any little holes that I came across, just trying to give it a good look over to make sure we don't have any bald spots. And then I figured this is probably still going to shed a little bit. So one trick I have is I've done this in two of these. I'm going to do it for two of these pumpkins, is to take some hairspray. This is my DIY hairspray. I don't show you me doing it because I went over to the kitchen sink to do it, so I didn't get hairspray everywhere. And I feel like that just helps kind of hold it in a little bit. And then I have these corn husk pieces. This is in a pack from Hobby Lobby. I bought it last year. The regular price is $5.99. You're going to get it 40 or 50% off right now if you wanted this. And I think it's a fun element to add to fall DIYs. So I'm just gluing a little bunch of them together at the base. And then I'm taking what I decided was the top of my pumpkin and poking in my scissors and just kind of open them a little bit to open it up just a little bit. Depending on how secure you needed this to be, you could pay more attention to that. But this worked really great and it's holding up well. And I put a good amount of hot glue in. The key is to just hold it still while the glue sets. And then I'm just adding in a little bit more glue around the base to kind of help it hold together. I don't go all the way up because I don't want it to be totally stiff, but I did want it to kind of hold together. Sorry, I keep trying to wait for my voiceover, but my fridge and freezer is making noises. So I trimmed that down a little bit. I did it a little bit at an angle just because I thought that was cute. And once again, a little bit of hot glue, but I don't want it too tight. And then I've heard people call this pitberry. That might be the proper name. I think at Dollar Tree, the packaging says berry garland. And I thought just a tiny pop of color here. I'm going to poke a little hole with my skewer, make sure it's going to go in there easily. This is wired, so the wire will help poke that in. And a tiny bit of hot glue, rearrange my little curly Q viney piece. And that's it for this pumpkin. I like all of the different textures in this. I think it's just fun to switch things up a little bit. All right, moving on. I don't show you all of the painting, but once again, this one is going to get a base coat in a cream color. We are not going to be covering this whole pumpkin, so I am just trying to make sure I'm doing a really good job getting in all of the little divots and grooves. And as you can see, this one has lots of texture on it. Again, I think that gives it more of a realistic look. And then I'm dry brushing in a little bit of a darker shade with a stencil brush. And I'm kind of holding the bristles together so it really just stays in the grooves. When I was crafting, I was chatting with my friend Kendra. She has a YouTube channel called Late Night Creations. And we were chatting about our DIYs that we were working on back and forth. And originally I wasn't going to do any of this texture in depth on here because we're going to add something else. But I love that I did this. It really just gave like a layered effect. So I'm also going in again with another darker color, just going over it a little bit more. And then the real plan for this pumpkin was to use this raffia ribbon, which actually was sent to me by Kendra in a Christmas in July Craft My Friend's Stash collab that we did together. She then sent this to me and I've obviously still have a lot of it left. So what I'm doing is just a little dab of hot glue at the top, and we're going to wrap it all the way around inside each of the grooves, the ribs, I think they're called, of the pumpkin, but each of the indentations. But I didn't want to put glue along the sides because I was afraid you'd see it. So I'm just holding it tight and hot gluing at the top and the bottom. And this way it's not pulled taut across. It like goes down in where the pumpkin curves down at the top and the bottom. So I hope that makes sense. And I'm just holding it and then slightly turning it, going to the one on the right. And we're just going to go all the way around doing the same thing. Speeding this up for you because now you get it. But I wanted to slow it down at the beginning so you could kind of see how I was doing that. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Leanne. I enjoy sharing budget-friendly DIYs here on this channel. And if you are not yet subscribed, I would love it if you did that. It is free to you. It is just like following on like other like social media platforms where you just follow a page. And if you subscribe and turn on the notification bell, my videos are more likely to show up in your subscription feed. Well, they're supposed to show up in your subscription feed if you do that. And then you won't miss out on my future videos. And I would love it if you would stick around and check out my other videos. All right, so once that's all done and secured, I pulled out some more leaves from the bag of floral trash, you could say. This is stuff that would just be thrown away. I'm trimming off some frayed edges, and then we're just going to glue this down to the center. And I kind of wanted to, like, I could have cut these apart, I suppose, but I overlapped them a little bit there, and then just taking another one of those stumps, deciding which end I wanted to go down, and put that in the center. And that is it for this one. I think this one is really fun, and I hope that you do too. Make sure down in the comments you let me know which one of these is your favorite. I think I've got one more to go here, and this one's fun. Okay, so this is another one that has been DIY'd, torn apart. You can see the size of the hole at the top of this, but have no fear, we're gonna still use this and make it work. So once again, going in with a base coat just to give us, you know, that base layer. Now, this is the color we're going to use in the end, but we're going to be doing some good old-fashioned grade school type paper mache. And from what I remember and what I've read, it's helpful to paint the base layer unless you're like paper macheing the whole thing, which we're not. So I got this idea from seeing some decor that had those, like, you know, those like pumpkins and gourds that are really textured and they have like the warts on them. I wanted to make some warty pumpkins. So I'm mixing up some flour and water, and some recommendations say to add salt to prevent molding. So I just did that. I made way more than I needed. I believe it's 2 parts to 1 part flour and water, but I'll include a link down below for you. Maybe that'll help you out. And then I just cut some white strips of like white craft paper that I had. You could also use tissue paper or craft paper. Brown paper bags would probably work. I wanted something that would be easy to paint over. And I'm just dipping them in our water and flour mixture. It got a little runny, so I was dabbing up some of that so it didn't drip all over. And I'm crumpling it up and making our little warts. I did some big, some small. I didn't put any in the bottom because I felt like that wasn't necessary. If I were to do this again, I would make more of them and layer some of them so that they were a little bit bigger. So I'm just telling you that now. So if you want to do that, you can keep this in mind, or if you're going to do this DIY, you can keep that in mind. So we're just going to keep going and going, and I'm trying to put them in different places. I'm trying to not be purposeful or symmetrical with this. I'm really wanting it to look more natural. So that's kind of my goal with this one, because I saw a picture of, or I saw a gourd decor piece, and I was like, I really like that, but I got to be able to make it myself. So I saw a couple other ideas online of how to do it, but this didn't require me to buy anything because I already had flour and water. So you can buy like paper mache material, I believe, but I don't know. This is how I paper macheed when I was a kid. Okay. So we're going to get all those on there. You're going to let this dry overnight. This does take a good little bit to dry. I don't really know how long. I did it at night, so mine dried overnight. And of course, the flour mixture leaves like a white residue as well. So now we're going to go in and give this a good coat of paint. We need to get around all of the little warts. And but at the end, I felt like it needed a little bit more texture. I didn't like the seam that you can see across the middle. That doesn't look high end to me. And I also thought those pumpkins are typically pretty textured in addition to the warts. So I did more of the baking soda and paint technique. And I did use a good amount of baking soda, probably more than I needed. But I'm just dabbing this on, and we're going to give this texture all over and also make sure we get the good paint coverage around I keep calling them warts because I think that's what they are, but it sounds so gross to say that. The bumps. But you want to make sure you can't see any of the white paper from what we made the warts out of. So covered up really good. So this was actually done the previous night when I first did the pumpkin, but I took some leftover pieces of the brown paper bag, and I'm going to make a paper mache stem as well. So this took a lot longer to dry, but I twisted it, crumpled it, made the bottom part a little bit more like flat, so I had a surface to glue with. And this did not dry overnight. I put it out on my patio, and that helped it dry a little bit more. And then when I was doing the final part, it was still a little bit soft in places. Like right here, it's dry, but it's a little bit soft. But I just didn't have any more time to wait. It will eventually harden. And then I wanted to paint it. So I'm going in with more of these beigey brownie colors that I've been using throughout this whole video, and I'm heating it with my heat gun to dry it down. Not heating it, drying it with my heat gun. And then I'm dry brushing a couple other colors. I just wanted to give it some dimensions. This looks like one of those really rustic-y, like, I don't know. Have you seen pumpkins that have these kind of stems on them? I love those. I love picking up like real pumpkins that have like a really like curved and textured stem. I just think it's really cool. So that's what I was going with. It kind of looks almost like the original color of the brown paper bag, but I just went for some different layered colors to give it a little bit of dimension. So then I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, it's all dry. What do I want to do? I like the stem on here. This is good, but I want to add something else. So we're going to go in with a little bit more of that Spanish moss, and I'm just putting a little bit of that around. This will also help fill in that hole because it had a pretty big hole. And then I wanted to add some other textures. So I'm taking some raffia and I'm wetting it. I just have a bowl with like a tiny, tiny bit of water in this, wrapping it around a paintbrush and drying it with my heat gun. I have seen my friend Kendra, I keep talking about her, hey Kendra, I've seen her do this and it's really neat. It just gives it a little bit of a curl to it, and I'm just hot gluing that in there, and I did a few pieces of that. And just to give, I keep saying the same words, but lots of texture and dimension to this. And I had so much fun with these DIYs, and I hope that you are enjoying this. So I'm going to put a ton of hot glue on the bottom of our stem. I knew the whole thing wouldn't be touching something, so I just put hot glue on everything to make sure we had enough surface contact. I'm pushing down at the base with my fingers because, like I said, this thing was a little bit soft still. It wasn't fully dry. And that's how this one came out. The final shot won't be as bright. I'm sorry these came out. I'm going to, I don't know, try to fix it. So maybe it's not bright for you now. I'm going to go back and try to fix that. But I love how these came out. Let me know which one of these is your favorite. If you like this video, once again, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. That helps me out so very much. Subscribe if you're new. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye, guys.